Welcome to this SSG Training for Competency module. During this module, we're going to look at the safe and effective supervision of children and young people while in our care. Before we get into the specifics of the module, we're just going to run through the bigger picture of the Training for Competency concept so that you understand exactly what we're aiming to achieve and how it plays a part in the bigger picture of our further development for our staff. Within the SSG Activities and Active Care Department, there are over 50 different activities available to us for delivery. Those deliveries fall into the following 5 category areas of sport, active play and inflatable fun, wacky crafts, mad science and adventure activities. We have somewhere in the region of 25 different projects and project areas. Some of these projects contain one specific activity, such as our swim schools, which focuses on swimming. However, some of our projects are made up of multiple activities from all of the different categories. An example of this is our school holiday activity, which can take different themes and different theme days, and within these days we can add in lots of different activities from the 5 different category areas. When looking at how best to provide training and competency for our staff within SSG activities and active care, we've settled on the following 3 category areas. We have the activity delivery ability, so that would be where you would learn about a specific activity or group of activities and how best to deliver those to a high quality, safely and with best practice. We look at project knowledge, so making sure that you are fully prepared when you're going into one of any of our specific projects. And then we have the wider policy understanding and application. An example here would be the wider safeguarding policy, health and safety, and many others that make sure that you have the underpinning foundation to do your jobs appropriately and well. It's really critical to us at SSG that all staff members are striving to improve themselves through personal development. There's a number of ways that staff can do this, including taking part in these Training for Competency modules. Doing the job and striving for self-improvement is really important. Undertaking shadow sessions. The more you see, the better you'll understand. And working with more experienced or staff with different knowledge is a great way to develop yourself. Speak to other SSG staff who have appropriate experience to advise you. Remember, it's important that you pick the right people and they know what they're talking about. And you can book yourself into other relevant national government body courses or other external training, and we have a large portfolio of these available to our staff. It's important to remember that your self-development will improve the quality of job you can do, but also it will improve the wide range of activities and projects that you can access. And the more you can do at SSG, then the more work you can get and the more money you can earn. At the end of every Training for Competency module, we will ask you to undertake a competency assessment. This could be a short questionnaire to show that you've listened to and understood the information in the presentation, or it could be a practical observation by a senior member of the team, just to see that you are capable of undertaking practical leadership. It could also be a combination of both, depending on the module. We've categorized our delivery into 4 phases, and this makes up the activities delivery pyramid. At the very foundation of everything that we do, we are looking to educate and develop children and young people's foundation and core skills and values. We'll look at this a little bit more in a slide shortly. Phase 2 is then building on this and looking to deliver meaningful physical activity and play. When we say meaningful, we're looking at children and young people engaging in the activity and taking something extra away through learning and enjoyment. Phase 3 looks at developmental, so technical and tactical skills. This is where projects like our sports academies and swim schools start to come into play, where we are looking at working the children through set criteria of skill development and assessing them along their journey so that we can award and reward them to show their achievement and progression. And then the final phase, phase 4, is where we're looking at educational physical literacy. And physical literacy looks at developing the heart, the head, and the hands. So the hands, we're looking at the practical doing, building on phase 3 around the developmental, tactical, and technical skills. Then we're taking it a level further. We're ensuring that we're embedding in the head a absolute understanding and importance for taking part in any form of physical activity. And then the heart is about developing their understanding and their physical fitness. So we want children and young people to leave those sessions with an absolute understanding that if they take part in physical activity, sport and PE lessons, they are going to get fitter, and they need to know the reasons that is important for their long-term health. All of our projects fit into one or more of these phases, but we never have one phase without the others that sit below them on the pyramid. When we think about the first phase of our pyramid and delivering character education and values, this is about making good people and setting good examples. We say that we want every young person and child that works with us to leave a session and leave a program having built better internal fibre. So on the screen here you can see just a few of what them things could be, and these are the behaviourisms that we are looking to encourage and reward through every single session and project that we do with every single young person who comes into contact with SSG. Okay, so we're going to move on with the specific module around the safe and effective supervision of children and young people. Please note that we will be undertaking a small competency questionnaire at the end of the presentation, just to check that you've been listening and you've taken on board some of the key information. This slide just shows you what our learning outcomes for the module is. So just take a moment and have a quick read through before you move on, just so you know what we're aiming to achieve with you and the information that we want you to leave the presentation with and be confident around. This slide shows you a model of all the different elements that are going to be spoke through today in the presentation and make up the different elements of the safe and effective supervision and care of children and young people. At the base of the model, you've got the safe and effective care policies. Either side, we've got the concepts of primary and secondary care, which we'll talk about shortly. And then within both of them, we've got elements of environment and setting, activities and outcomes, behaviour management, individual pastoral needs, and staff role modelling. Over the next few slides, we're going to talk about each of these elements separately so that you can see how they make up the bigger picture. SSG Activities in Active Care have developed a range of policies that contribute to the safe and effective care of children and young people. Over the years that we've been in operation, we are confident in our policies. They've been developed in line with industry standards and a lot of technical experts, and of course our own wide-ranging experience in our 17-year history. Within this, we categorize them as you can see in the slide here. So each of these policies have information and processes in that you need to be aware of. We don't expect you to remember every word of every policy, but we do expect you to know where to look for them, to find them, to reference them, and then to apply what they say. As you can see there on the right of the slide, we have placed these policies in a number of places for you to access, including our own website standards page within the People HR system that you all have access to as a member of staff, and they will be available within project folders. So whether you're a lead instructor or a project lead, you should have copies, hard copies printed out, available to you and available to the staff you're working with. There's far too much information in these policies to go through in a presentation like this today. So we encourage and ask and expect all of our staff to take some time to look at these when they first initially start working with us, and to regularly refresh themselves with the information so that there are absolutely no doubts about what our expectations are. Many of our policies are linked to legal expectations, and it's really important that staff members understand what the legal expectations are when you are caring for children and young people. So now, if you're looking at this in your own time, and you can just pause, follow one of these directions, go and have a look at the policies, and make sure that you've got them saved somewhere you can find them really quickly and easily to reference at any point that you want to and or need to. The next two slides look at the difference between what we term primary care and secondary care. The main difference between these two concepts comes down to the attendance of a third party adult, whether that's a parent or carer of the child or young person. In primary care, they are not present. They will leave the child with us for a period of time, and we have sole responsibility for the care. And in secondary care, we expect that a parent or carer of the child or young person will be present and available to support us. The key thing to remember here is that our standards and our policies do not change. The expectation is any child or young person gets the same level of care and attention from our staff member and our staff teams as they would regardless of their primary or secondary care. Practical duties may change through policy needs, and this will be highlighted in each and every project. Take a moment just to have a read of these two slides and try and understand the core differences between primary and secondary care. This slide looks at the central column of the model. So the first element that we've put in is around effectively managing environments and settings. We've broken this down into two thought processes: the dangers and risks and the stimulation and excitement. If we just look at the dangers and risks first of all, so quite often staff members will arrive at venues to deliver on programs that we either use regularly or that are being overseen by a member of leadership. That doesn't mean that it's not their responsibility to think about and consider dangers and risks, and if they identify such a thing, to do something about it. When we talk about dangers and risks when we're caring for children and young people, so these are some of the following, but not exclusively everything. And we really require staff to be thinking and applying their own thoughts when they're thinking about this. Examples could be around electric. Are there electric cables accessible? Are there electric sockets? that could pose a risk to younger children if they start to play with them, which should maybe have covers on. Foreign objects. Are there things in the room, in the sports hall, or even on the field that shouldn't be there? If it's quite an easily accessible space, particularly outdoors, check that nobody's left something, whether that's human or animal, that is undesirable, or that it's got rocks and stones in an area that children are going to run around on and possibly fall over it and hurt themselves. When we talk about lighting, we need to think about that it's effective and appropriate. Water, not just water in terms of out of a tap, but also ponds or streams or rivers running nearby. Extreme weather is something that we experience a lot of in the United Kingdom. So think about, are the children safe underfoot? Are they getting wet? Are they getting cold? Are they getting too hot? And then boundaries and exits and entrances. So is the site secure? Can the children get into spaces that they shouldn't? Could they leave site? Is a car park easily accessible? If it is, make sure that your session area is a long way, or as long away as possible. Just be thinking all the time about these environments and settings and the risks and dangers that they present. With a little bit of thought, reference to existing risk assessments, there really isn't anything to worry about. It will only be complacent in your own thoughts and processes that lead to a problem. In terms of stimulation and excitement, we want every single environment that we undertake an activity in to be exactly that. So think about how the area that you're working in is laid out. Does it look exciting? Is it colourful, vibrant? Is there signage to help the children and young people and possibly the parents? How have you got your equipment and resources set out? Can we see it all? Is it in an area that sends an exciting feeling to a young person who's arrived for a session? If we're inside, have we got wall displays? Is there colourful and vibrant, stimulating posters or signage up and around the wall? Anything we can do to add to this just makes the session a little bit better. The second of the 5 internal columns from the model we looked at earlier considers ensuring that we have appropriate and meaningful activities. So everything that a young person or child does with us needs to tick the boxes around some of the following. Is it appropriate to the age and ability of the child or children or young people in the group? Do we have the correct type of equipment and the quantity of equipment and resources to make the session really engaging and inclusive? Do we know the outcomes as staff members? And do we make sure that in the right level of language, we're passing those desired outcomes over to those in the group? Staff knowledge and training is key. And this module is centred to achieving that, as we've discussed. We want to be offering a wide range of activities and outcomes. And we want everything to be adaptive and inclusive. There's never an excuse for a child or young person to not be getting involved at the right level for themselves. The next of our 5 central columns on the model looks at behaviour management. It is without doubt one of the most difficult elements of working with children and young people, because for a number of reasons, behaviour can be undesirable. We have to focus on the positive. We have to make sure that we stay calm and firm, fair and consistent. We never shout or get angry. We always make sure that we explain expectations at the beginning. This is what good behavior looks like. This is what we're going to reward you for, and get the children and young people to tell you these things. And if the behavior starts to look a little disruptive, or that you're losing a bit of control, we stop the groups, we bring them back in, and we explain it again. And there's lots of fun ways we can go over these expectations with children. We need to consistently use rewards and recognitions, and here at SSG we've got so many tools to do this, including our active champions and points systems. And if you're not familiar with the specific one being used on a specific project, then you need to ask the question, and ask it quick before you encounter negative behavior and problematic behavior from anyone that you're working with. Many of our staff join us with a small amount of experience of working with children and young people. So it's really important to understand that it's part of our responsibility to look after every single individual pastoral need, and not to get too distracted by what the session is. Pastoral needs are going to come up in lots of different scenarios. First of all, we've got the SEND situation. SEND stands for Special Educational Needs and Disabilities. If we have a child with a SEND condition, we'll know about it. They will have told us, and that information will exist. If you're caring or looking after a group, you need to be looking out for this information. And if you haven't done our understanding and managing SEND module, or you're just a little bit unsure about the specific conditions and how best to manage them, ask the question. Safeguarding runs through everything that we do. So we've got to keep the children safe and be looking out for potential problems. There could be problems that are taking place here at SSG that we can address quickly, or it could be something that's said or heard or seen that might relate to something else. Again, we have designated safeguarding leads in the department and the company. If you're not sure, speak to somebody. Engagement with others. Children will show you they're unhappy and uncomfortable if they're just not engaging, or if they're engaging in a manner that is over the top. Again, it could be that they're seeking attention with disruptive behaviour or being mean to other children. It probably means that they're not happy, and we can do something about that. Engagement with the activities is very similar. If the activity is too difficult, or they haven't understood the instructions, they'll probably shy away, or they'll start to make a bit of a mess with it, and again, possibly be disruptive. If we think that's happened, or we haven't explained an activity well enough, we just stop and we go over it again, and we make sure that everyone is engaging with the activities. We've talked a little bit about development, so we need to know what physical and cognitive development we're aiming to achieve, and always be on hand to support and encourage that, no matter how little that might be. The smallest thing that a child might ask a question to learn something else needs to be addressed. Keep an eye on their clothing, particularly the younger children or young people with SEND, because they're not always going to spot what they're wearing it to be suitable and safe. So before you take groups from inside to outside, check that they're all dressed appropriately. Check their footwear when they arrive, that's appropriate also, and keep an eye on it throughout the whole time that they're with you. Food and drink is an interesting one. We have a very clear policy on food and drink and how it's managed within SSG programs. But when you're looking after someone who's staying with us for a lunch period, we need to check that they're eating. We need to check throughout the days that they're drinking. Small children particularly will allow themselves to get distracted. So make sure you know our policies on that front. Medication. We'll have lists of children with medication, and that will sit predominantly with project leads and lead instructors. But if a child has a condition such as asthma or epilepsy, where they need the medication to be on hand and quickly accessible, then it needs to be with you if you're their group leader or instructor. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And if you're not sure, check the policy for first aid and medical distribution, and you'll see exactly what you need to be doing. When we talk about toilets and personal care, again, we just need to make sure that the children are getting opportunity to go to the toilets. We don't need to keep children from going to the toilets if they need to go. And if you think someone's going too much as a distraction, then address it. It could be that the session isn't engaging for them and they're bored, and that's why they want to get away and do something else. Eyes on level means the supervision has to be appropriate to the age. So if you've got younger children or children with SEND, just don't let them out of your sight. And if you do, then seek support and know the policies. There's no excuse for children to not be supervised. And frustration and fears. Just remember, every child's different, and throughout any time that they're with you, anything could upset their mood or change their mood. So just keep on top of it, and if you see a problem, take time to deal with it. And if you can, seek some help. It could be that their parent or a carer is close by and you can just bring them in to help, or a project lead if it's a primary care project. Let's stay on top of looking after our children and young people, because they're so important and we can't afford to get it wrong. And our final slide before you go on to do your competency questionnaire is just looking at your behaviour and role modelling. This is our fifth and final of our central columns, and it doesn't matter whether their parents and carers or senior staff from SSG are present, because your behaviour and role modelling should be exactly the same. So remember, there's lots involved in this, and it's easy when you're working with like-minded people and enjoying your work to let your standards drop and forget a few key things. Maintain a positive attitude at all times. Things sometimes go wrong in life, but don't turn up and don't bring it to work. And if you can't deal with it, then you need to speak to someone senior before you go near any children or young people, because it's certainly not something that you can project onto them. And if you're distracted, you're not going to be providing the proper care and attention that we've talked about in today's module. Always ensure you're looking smart and in uniform, clean, neat and tidy. As parents, if they're leaving their children with you, and this is something they value, and you don't look professional, they're going to have a problem. We have very clear standards and policies, so you just got to follow them and you'll be fine. Remember, you're working with children. Don't tell them things which may be inappropriate, and avoid irrelevant topics. Not even if they bring them up. Steer them away. Donald Trump has been one of the most popular themes, and everyone thinks he's hilarious, and children have been picking this up, but this is political and we need to stay away from things like that. Equally, don't be talking about your night out the night before or what you're going to be doing at the weekend coming. Certainly not while you're at work, and certainly not while there's children and young people around. Never show favouritism to one or more children over others. You need to treat them all fairly and the same. And choose your language carefully. It's obvious to know that you can't be swearing in front of children or using inappropriate phrases, but try and avoid slang words, because a lot of parents won't appreciate their children getting home and using something that they don't approve of. Okay, so that's our final slide. So we're now going to move on to the Training for Competency questionnaire.